The champagne glass exploded against the marble floor, missing Emma Carter's feet by inches. Her hands trembled as she stared at the shattered crystal. $300 of destruction, the exact amount she needed for next month's rent. The woman in diamonds screamed at her, but Emma couldn't hear anything over the pounding of her own heartbeat. Before we dive into Emma's incredible journey from struggling waitress to finding her voice and true love, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Stay with us until the very end of this story. You won't believe what happens. And please, comment below with your city, so I can see how far this story travels around the world. Now, let's continue with Emma's life-changing night. Emma had been invisible for 3 years at Marchand, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. She'd perfected the art of disappearing, serving wine to millionaires who never learned her name, cleaning up their messes, swallowing insults with a practiced smile. At 26, she was drowning in student debt, living in a studio the size of a closet, and her writing dreams felt like they belonged to someone else. But everything changed the moment her manager, Denise, cornered her in the break room that Friday evening. "The Whitney estate needs extra staff for tomorrow night," Denise announced, her calculating eyes fixed on Emma. "Private engagement party. They're paying $1,000. Emma's breath caught. $1,000. It was a lifeline she couldn't afford to refuse. "I'll do it," she said, the words tumbling out before fear could stop her. Denise's expression hardened. "This isn't serving dinner to tourists, Carter. This is elite work. Absolute perfection. Zero mistakes." Her gaze dropped to the floor where the broken glass had been swept away moments ago. "Think you can handle it?" Something fierce sparked in Emma's chest. She was tired of being underestimated, tired of apologizing for existing. "I can handle it." The next evening, Emma stood outside the Whitney estate, and her world shifted. The mansion sprawled across lawns that stretched forever. Peacocks wandered the grounds. The staff entrance was more luxurious than anywhere she'd lived. This wasn't just wealth, this was a different universe. Inside, head server Marcus gave her strict instructions. "Act like you've seen this before. Never make eye contact. Never speak unless spoken to. Your furniture with a pulse." Emma nodded, even as something inside her recoiled. She'd agreed to serve, not erase herself. Then Scarlett Vanderberg appeared, the bride-to-be, whose engagement would be splashed across every society page. She wore white like a queen, her smile dazzling, her voice warm as honey. "Welcome, everyone. You're all part of making tonight magical," Scarlett gushed. Emma wanted to believe it. But 20 minutes later, she watched that sweet smile transform into something cold as Scarlett tore into a florist. The mask had slipped. The guests arrived in waves, politicians, celebrities, old money and new, all congregating to celebrate Nathaniel Ashford and Scarlett Vanderberg, the perfect couple, American royalty. Emma circulated with champagne, a ghost in black and white, when she first saw him. Nathaniel Ashford stood on the terrace, perfectly dressed, perfectly positioned, and completely miserable. While everyone celebrated, his eyes held a desperate, trapped quality Emma recognized. She'd seen it in her own mirror every morning. Their eyes met for just a second, but it felt like falling. Emma turned away quickly, remembering the rules. No eye contact. Stay invisible. But her hands trembled as she poured champagne, hyper-aware of him 20 feet away. The evening progressed like clockwork until Scarlett took the microphone at 8 o'clock. "Everyone, I have a special surprise," she announced, her smile absolutely radiant. Behind her, a massive screen flickered to life, showing a video montage, a tribute to my darling Nathaniel and our beautiful future together. But something was wrong. Nathaniel's face had gone white. As the video played, showing Scarlett's curated vision of their life, complete with narration detailing career moves he'd never agreed to, Emma watched him slowly back away. The crowd murmured, confused. Scarlett's smile faltered. "Nathaniel?" she called sweetly, steel underneath. "Where are you going?" He stopped at the terrace edge, faced 300 of New York's elite, and said clearly, "I can't do this." The silence was deafening. "I'm sorry," he continued, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. This engagement was a mistake. Scarlett, you deserve someone who loves you. I'm not that person. Chaos erupted. Scarlett's face contorted with rage. Guests gasped and pulled out phones. Nathaniel's father pushed through the crowd, face purple, and Emma stood frozen, champagne bottle in hand, watching a man choose truth over comfort. Scarlett's voice cut through the noise like a blade. How dare you humiliate me like this? But Nathaniel was moving, pushing through the crowd. Emma saw Scarlett signal security, saw the net closing. Without thinking, she grabbed a service tray and intercepted a guard. "Sir, urgent message from the kitchen," she lied smoothly, blocking his path long enough for Nathaniel to slip through a side door. What was she doing? This was insane. Risking everything for a man she didn't know. But she couldn't stop. Emma found Nathaniel in the service hallway, breathing hard, looking lost. "They're searching the East Wing," she whispered. "Follow me." She led him through servants' corridors, past the kitchen, down a staircase, and out a delivery entrance. Her heart hammered. This was career suicide. "Thank you," Nathaniel said quietly. When Emma looked at him, she saw something unexpected. Genuine gratitude. Raw vulnerability. Real humanity. "You need to get out of here before they find you," Emma said. "I don't even know your name." "Emma. Emma Carter. And you shouldn't be thanking me. I just got myself fired." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Emma Carter, can I buy you dinner?" She should have said no. Should have been sensible. But Emma had spent 3 years being sensible, invisible, safe, and where had it gotten her? "Okay," she heard herself say. But somewhere with actual food, not tiny portions on giant plates. 2 hours later, they sat in a tiny Brooklyn pizzeria. Nathaniel in his $1,000 suit, Emma in her server's uniform, and for the first time in years, she could breathe. "I'm sorry about tonight," Nathaniel said. "You lost your job because of me." "I helped you escape your engagement party," Emma corrected. "That was my choice." He looked at her with wonder. "Everyone in my life has an agenda. What's yours?" Emma set down her slice. "I don't have one. I just saw someone who needed help." "That simple?" "That simple." She paused. "Although, now that you mention it, I could use a reference. My job history just got complicated." They talked until the restaurant closed. About dreams and disappointments. About the weight of expectations. Nathaniel told her about growing up in a gilded cage, groomed for a life he never wanted. Emma shared her student debt, her abandoned writing dreams, her tiny apartment. "You still want to write?" he asked. "Wanting and doing are different things," Emma said quietly. "I've been surviving, instead of living." Nathaniel reached across the table and took her hand. "Electricity. What if you didn't have to choose?" he said. "What if you could do both?" Emma's phone exploded with notifications at 1 a.m. She was back in her tiny apartment when texts started flooding in. "Jade. Oh my God, are you the waitress? You're viral." Emma opened social media with shaking hands. Number Ashford wedding was trending. Number runaway groom. Number waitress hero. Someone had filmed everything. Emma was there in the background, helping him escape. Her work phone rang. "Denise, do you have any idea what you've done?" Denise's voice could cut steel. "The Vanderbergs are threatening to sue. You violated the NDA. You're finished. Done." The line went dead. Another call came. Unknown number. "Emma Carter? This is Richard Ashford, Nathaniel's father. My car will be at your address in 30 minutes. The Mercedes arrived exactly on time. The driver led Emma to Ashford Hotel headquarters, up to an office occupying the entire top floor. Richard Ashford didn't stand. He sat behind a desk the size of Emma's apartment, looking at her like a disappointing quarterly report. Richard studied her silence, meant to intimidate. Emma stayed quiet. Finally, he spoke. "How much?" Emma blinked. "Excuse me? How much money will it take for you to disappear from my son's life?" He opened a checkbook. "Everyone has a price. What's yours?" The insult should have stung. Instead, Emma felt pity. This man thought money could buy anything, even his son's happiness. I don't want your money. 2 million then. He started writing. Tax-free. You sign an NDA. Disappear. My son moves on. No. The pen stopped. Richard looked up, genuinely confused. You're refusing 2 million? I'm refusing to treat your son like a transaction. Emma leaned forward. You asked what I want? I want Nathaniel to laugh like he means it. I want him to stop apologizing for feelings. I want him to build hotels that matter, instead of monuments to your ego. Richard's face turned purple. How dare! I'm not finished. Emma's voice stayed steady. I want him to stop looking over his shoulder for your approval. And maybe I want him to have a father who sees him, not an heir. Silence. Then Richard laughed. Actually laughed. Nathaniel said you had spine. I didn't believe him. He tore up the check. You're either brave or stupid. Can't it be both? Another laugh. My son has made his choice. I don't have to like it. He stood, extending his hand. But I respect people who don't back down. Emma shook his hand. Outside, Nathaniel waited. What happened? Did he threaten you? Emma kissed him. Hard. When she pulled back, she grinned. Your father offered me 2 million. Nathaniel went white. Emma. I told him no. Then I told him what I wanted. Which was? You. Free. Happy. Real. He kissed her again. Slower. You're incredible. Over the next 6 months, Emma's life transformed in ways she'd never imagined. Nathaniel offered her a position as creative director for his sustainable hotel project, not charity, but a real job where her talent mattered. I need someone who understands authentic storytelling, he'd explained. Someone who'll find the real narrative, the human connection. Emma had wanted to say yes immediately, but doubt crept in. What would people say? Jade had been blunt. Take the job. They'll judge you anyway. Might as well be judged while doing work you love and getting paid what you deserve. So Emma took the leap forward with newfound courage. She worked alongside architects and designers, crafting stories that made the hotels feel like places that mattered, instead of just expensive rooms to sleep in. She wrote content that connected with people instead of just impressing them. For the first time since college, she was using her literature degree for something that actually resonated. They kept their relationship private at first, sneaking moments between meetings, sharing late-night pizza on rooftops, while the city sparkled below like scattered diamonds. They thought they could keep it quiet. They were wrong. Word leaked after 3 months. A photo of them kissing outside her apartment hit social media, and within hours, the media frenzy became a hurricane. Gold digger catches billionaire on the rebound. The headlines screamed with predictable cruelty. From serving champagne to stealing hearts, Waitress's calculated move. Photographers camped outside her apartment building, shouting questions every time she left for work. Strangers dissected her entire life online. Her college photos, her social media, her family background. Everything made public and judged. Scarlett gave interviews on morning television, looking beautiful and heartbroken and completely believable. She saw an opportunity, and she took it, Scarlett said, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. I feel sorry for Nathaniel. He doesn't see that he's being manipulated by someone who wants his money and status. Emma wanted to hide, to disappear back into invisibility where it was safe, where no one could hurt her with their assumptions and judgments. But Nathaniel wouldn't let her retreat. He called a press conference, an actual press conference, and stood beside her in front of dozens of cameras and reporters, his hand wrapped firmly around hers. I fell in love with Emma because she saw me as a person, not a bank account, he said clearly, his voice steady even though Emma could feel his hand trembling slightly in hers. She gave me the courage to choose authenticity over approval, to choose happiness over expectation, to choose being real over being perfect. I'd make that choice again every single day. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Emma squeezed his hand so hard she was probably cutting off circulation, but he just squeezed back. Is it true she was just a waitress? Someone yelled from the back. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. She's a writer. An incredibly talented writer who was supporting herself while pursuing her dream. There's no just about that kind of courage. His father threatened to cut him off financially, though Richard's heart wasn't really in the threat after their early morning meeting. Society friends who'd known Nathaniel since childhood suddenly became too busy to return his calls. Some colleagues at the company started treating him differently, like he'd become unpredictable and dangerous. But something unexpected happened too. Nathaniel's mother, who'd been silent for years under her husband's controlling influence, called Emma directly. "What you did took real courage," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Standing up to Richard, choosing yourself, helping my son find himself. I wish I'd found that kind of courage 30 years ago. Thank you for showing me it's never too late." Emma cried after that call. Not sad tears, but something else, recognition that courage could inspire courage. That choosing authenticity gave others permission to do the same. Emma wrote every morning at 4 a.m. Before the city woke up. Before work demanded her attention. Before the world could tell her all the reasons why she couldn't do this. She'd set 3 alarms because she'd learned the hard way that 4 a.m. Emma hated past Emma for making this commitment. But once she started writing, something magical happened. The novel poured out like she'd been holding it in for years, which, honestly, she had been. It was the story of a woman learning to take up space in a world that wanted her invisible, of choosing courage over comfort, of finding love when she finally found herself. Fiction, but not really. Nathaniel would wake at 6, find her surrounded by notebooks and empty coffee cups, and bring fresh coffee without speaking. He understood creative process. Some mornings Emma cried from frustration when the words wouldn't come right. Some mornings she laughed from unexpected joy when a scene finally clicked into place. Most mornings she just worked, building something word by word, page by page, believing in it, even when she wasn't sure anyone else would. After 4 months, she had a complete draft. After 5 months of brutal revision, she started querying literary agents. The rejections came fast and cruel. Not commercial enough for today's market. The protagonist is too internal. Readers want more action. Romance readers want escapism, not reality checks about class and money. This feels too niche. Have you considered making her more likable? Emma taped each rejection letter to her bedroom wall, a growing monument to failure that Jade called deeply masochistic, but Emma found strangely motivating. Proof she was trying. Proof she was brave enough to fail publicly, to put her work out there and hear no, and keep going anyway. 23 rejections turned into 24. 24 became 25. Maybe they're right, Emma told Nathaniel one night, standing in front of her wall of professional no's, feeling the weight of every single one. Maybe my story doesn't matter. Maybe I should just focus on the hotel work and stop pretending I'm a real writer. Nathaniel pulled her away from the wall, away from the rejections, and held her close. Your story matters because it's true, because you lived it, and survived it, and turned it into something beautiful. The right person will see that. I promise. You have to say that, Emma said. But she was smiling despite herself. You love me. I do love you. The words still made her heart skip even after all these months. But that doesn't make me wrong. Your voice matters. Emma, don't let anyone convince you otherwise. She kissed him, tasting possibility and fear and love all mixed together. Rejection 26 came the next week. Emma almost quit. She stood in front of her laptop, cursor blinking on a blank page, and seriously considered giving up. But the morning after 4 a.m., 3 alarms, coffee brewing, she wrote anyway. Because Nathaniel was right. Her story was true. And true stories deserve to be told, published or not. The writing itself mattered, even if no one ever read it besides her. 3 days later, her phone rang at 9 a.m. Unknown number. Emma almost didn't answer. Miss Carter? This is Sarah Chen from Chen Literary Agency. A pause that felt like forever. I stayed up all night reading your manuscript. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. We need to talk about representation. Emma dropped her coffee mug. It shattered against her office floor just like that champagne glass 18 months ago at the Whitney estate. But this time, the breaking meant something beautiful. This time, it meant yes. The book deal came 6 months later, after more revisions and submissions and nail-biting waiting. When Emma signed the contract, she cried. Real, messy, tears of disbelief and joy and terror all mixed together. But the celebration was short-lived. The deal leaked to the press before the official announcement, and the backlash was immediate and vicious. Billionaire's girlfriend writes tell-all book. The tabloids screamed with glee. Emma Carter cashes in on relationship with shocking memoir. It wasn't a tell-all. It wasn't even a memoir. It was fiction, a novel about a woman finding her voice. But truth didn't matter to people who'd already decided what her story should be. The comments online were brutal, each one a paper cut that added up to something that hurt more than Emma wanted to admit. She's using him for fame and money. This is disgusting. Gold digger writes fantasy version of herself. Pathetic. Bet his money paid for a ghostwriter. No way she actually wrote it. This is going to be trash. Probably can't even write. Emma read every comment, absorbing every cruel word like poison. She knew she shouldn't. Knew it was self-destructive. But she couldn't stop scrolling. Jade showed up at Emma's apartment that evening with 2 bottles of wine and righteous fury radiating from every pore. Don't read the comments, Jade warned. Which was exactly how Emma knew she'd already read them, and they were even worse than Emma thought. Too late, Emma said, showing her phone screen. Already memorized the top 50. They don't know you. Jade physically took Emma's phone away and set it across the room. They don't know that you wrote every single word of that book at 4 a.m. while working full-time. They don't know about the 26 rejections, or the crying, or the million times you almost gave up. They want you to be a villain because it's easier than believing someone like you could have something real with someone like Nathaniel. It challenges their worldview. What if they're right, though? Emma whispered, voicing the fear she'd been trying to suppress. What if I am just using him? What if the only reason any of this is happening, the job, the book deal, everything is because of who he is? What if I'm exactly what they say I am? Her phone buzzed from across the room. Text from Nathaniel. Rooftop. Now. Emergency. Emma's heart dropped. Emergency? What happened? Was he okay? Had his father done something? Scarlet? She found Nathaniel on his building's rooftop garden, the city glittering below like scattered diamonds, looking completely fine. Not emergency fine. Actually fine. What's wrong? Emma demanded, still panicking. Are you hurt? Is it your dad? The company? What? Nathaniel handed her a glass of champagne, the expensive kind, but not obscenely so, like he was still learning to navigate between his old life and the new one they were building. Nothing's wrong. I lied about the emergency. Sorry. You what? I read the comments, he said, his voice gentle but firm. I know you're spiraling. I know you're doubting everything right now. So I needed to remind you of something important. Remind me of what? That none of it matters. He took her hand, pulling her to the edge of the rooftop where they could see the entire city spread out below them. They're calling you a liar, calling us fake, saying you only wrote the book because of me. Want to know what's actually real? What? This. You. Us. Choosing each other every day, even when it's hard. He cupped her face gently. Your book is brilliant. You're brilliant. You wrote it because you couldn't not write it. That's real. Everything else is just noise from people who don't know us, and never will. Emma let herself cry, not sad tears, but release. She'd spent so long being afraid of judgment, of not being enough, of being exposed as somehow fraudulent. But standing on that rooftop with Nathaniel, she realized something profound. Other people's stories about her didn't have to become her truth. She got to decide who she was. I love you, she said. Even when you're being disgustingly supportive. He laughed. Especially then. 1 year after that chaotic engagement party that changed everything, Emma sat in a Brooklyn bookstore for her first book signing. The line stretched around the block. Young women clutched her novel like it held sacred answers. A young woman approached. eyes shining with tears. "This story changed my life," she said quietly. "The way Emma, your character, chooses herself, even when it's terrifying. I needed that. Thank you." Emma looked across the bookstore. Nathaniel watched from the back, his face full of pride and love. They'd chosen each other through all the chaos, learning what they needed through it. That evening, they returned to the same pizza place where it all began. Same booth, same terrible jukebox playing 80s hits. Nathaniel slid out of the booth and onto one knee. Time stopped. "Emma Carter," he said, pulling out a simple, perfect ring. "You once told me this was just a date, not a guarantee. I'm hoping to upgrade that status. Will you marry me?" Emma looked at this man who'd chosen truth over legacy, who'd supported her dreams while building his own, who felt like home. "Yes," she whispered, pulling him up and kissing him as the entire restaurant erupted in applause. "But I'm keeping my name. Wouldn't have it any other way." 2 years later, Emma stood at another book signing for her second novel, this one topping bestseller lists and being adapted for television. Nathaniel had transformed his family's hotel empire into a model of sustainable luxury that was actually changing the industry. They'd gotten married quietly, just family and close friends, with promises that meant something because they were chosen, not performed. But the real victory wasn't success or recognition. It was quiet moments. Nathaniel falling asleep on their couch, peaceful and himself. Emma writing at dawn, finally believing her voice mattered. Two people learning to be real together. The girl who'd made herself small had learned to take up space. The boy trapped in expectations had found freedom. Together, they built something that looked nothing like a fairy tale, and everything like real love. Because perfect was just a performance. But real, messy, complicated, courageous real that was worth everything. The champagne glass that shattered that night had been an ending. But it was also a beginning. Sometimes you have to break the perfect picture to find out what's true underneath. And what Emma found was worth every broken piece.